I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her. And her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Tap rooms are localized and they're geographic. The Hispanic community is much broader than one tap room. So what we decided to do was come out with a high-quality craft beer, 2 high-quality craft beers that appeal to the Hispanic taste and that we can distribute in all the Hispanic neighborhoods. Taino is a very light, refreshing beer. It's a social beer that you can drink probably for a good part of the evening, and it'll give you a nice light feeling. It's not a heavy beer, it's very airy, and it's very light. It's a 4.5 alcohol, which is low for beer. The Boricua is a 6.0. Now that's a stronger beer, and we designed it to be a little bit stronger than Heineken. Heineken is a favorite in the Hispanic community, so we have a little bit more muscle than Heineken. Boricua right now, in a very short amount of time, it's been a miracle for us because we've gotten a large range of acceptance at the retail level. We're in Publix, we're in ABC, Target is picking it up, we're in Sedano's, we're in Bravo's, 7-Elevens are picking it up because they're concentrating more on craft beer and the Hispanic market. So what we're trying to do is do a quality beer, a high quality beer, more taste, and that the Hispanic community will like. Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her. And her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
SB 54 is basically going to make California a sanctuary state, but just not a sanctuary state on steroids, because it's purposely written to shield dangerous, felonious non-citizens, which represent about 2% of our immigrant population, from having to be deported. It actually makes it unlawful for our Department of Corrections, our county sheriffs, our police departments, our probation officers, from having any discussions with ICE about the pending release of these dangerous criminals back into our streets and neighborhoods. I would think, after all, the bill did include assault with a deadly weapon, but the pro tem couldn't get the bill passed in the Senate, so he watered it down. So what does it include? In child abuse, taking a hostage, stalking, solicitation to commit murder, elder abuse, felony with a hate crime enhancement, crimes for the benefit of aging, DUIs, and domestic violence. I think any of these crimes should be justification. The plan in the state of California, every Monday we have a dump on Trump hour where they're just getting in his face. This is to antagonize the president. And what's going to happen here is, if this bill passes, it's going to cause illegal immigrants from all over the country to come here because they know they're probably not going to be deported.
Sure.
But what neighborhoods and interrogate neighborhoods, and people that have been quietly following the law except for their immigration status are going to get arrested and potentially deported. So I think this is going to actually backfire.
It's going to pass in the Assembly just like it passed in the California Senate. It was entirely a party line vote, and the Democrats are united on this policy. The thing that's so crazy about it, though, Bill, is that Californians don't agree with the policy. You know, Californians, immigrant and native-born Californians, don't want these criminals in their community. And we're talking, again, as Senator Stone mentioned, these are not, simple crimes here. These are stalkers, these are child abusers, these are drug dealers. There's even a category of criminal. This is someone who has anthrax with, intent to actually do something with it. Those people wouldn't be subject to these ICE detainers. Take a look at the bill's author. It's Kevin De Leon. 2 things are interesting. One, Kevin De Leon's real name is actually Kevin Leon. He changed it, and he has publicly admitted that about half of his family is in this country or came to this country illegally. So
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and this segment is called I Don't Get It. There's a lot of things that are happening in Central Florida that I just don't get, so we're starting a series as a commentary about these facts that we want to bring to the community. What I don't get is how it's possible for there to be 14,000 homeless children in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties. These three counties have 1/5 of the entire state's homeless population for children. Now, when you have 13,000, almost 14,000 homeless children, a total of 26,000 when you include the other counties of Central Florida, what are we facing in 3 and 4 and 5 years? What you're going to have is 26,000 homeless teenagers. And then you're going to have 26,000 homeless young adults. If we don't do something about this, this is going to produce such a negative social effect on our community. We are a tourism community. So how is it that we have so many homeless children? Well, Central Florida is an attraction. People come here and they land up getting part-time jobs, they land up getting high turnover jobs in the tourism industry, and they become homeless. Right now, we have shelters, people living in shelters. We have people sleeping in cars. I'm talking about children. Let's just talk about the children. We have children living in vans, in temporary housing, in motels. We have children sleeping in cars and vans. And it's an absolutely horrendous situation because these kids actually go to a 7-Eleven to wash up and then they go to school. And the parents aren't going to report it because the social services are going to take these kids away from their parents. So this is a constant situation that's getting worse and worse and worse every year. We have to do something about it as a society.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
Many of the millennials, dreamers, undocumented citizens, and I call them citizens because they contribute to this country, are fearful of voting. So if I vote, will immigration know where I live? Will they come for my family and deport us?
Not true.
Okay.
And the reason is, first of all, when you vote, you are a citizen yourself, and there is not a situation where the voting rolls somehow are transferred over and people start investigating, et cetera. The sanctity of the vote is strictly confidential in terms of who you voted for. If you have a family member who maybe is undocumented, then you have an even greater reason to vote.
This has been a huge fear presented, especially during this election.
And the reason that fear is promoted is because they don't want people voting. People are discouraged from voting, and part of what is important for Latino citizens is to make your voice heard, because you're not just speaking for yourself, you're speaking for family members, friends, classmates of yours in school who may not have a voice, who can't legally vote, but they're counting on you to make sure that you have the courage to make your voice heard.
This campaign has definitely been.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV. I hope you like my hat. And we've been here on Spectrum since Spectrum started, but before that on Bright House Cable for about 13 years. We are taping in the studios of WFME up on East Colonial, and we air every Tuesday night. And if you're watching the show, obviously you know that. We are here with a newly elected representative. His name is Carlos Guillermo Smith, and he has some really, really interesting commentaries about our local communities here in Central Florida, and a little bit about what's going on in the governor's house and also in the state legislature. Carlos, again, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Danny. Appreciate it.
And I know you're one of the most open people that ever comes on the show. No tiene pelo en la lengua. You know what I mean? It's like, and for you people out there who don't know what it means, that's a Spanish saying, which means that you don't hesitate from saying anything that's on your mind.
Solamente la verdad.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I understand that there's some issues with the governor and requests being made of the governor for an executive order.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that little bit of controversy, because I know that the governor was very sensitive to that issue some months ago. So why don't you fill in and bring us up to date?
Well, basically, after the tragedy at the Pulse nightclub, which was not only an act of terror and the worst mass shooting that our country has ever seen, but it was also the worst hate crime against the LGBTQ community that the country's ever seen. We knew that it was very, very important for the governor to send a message that Florida is a place that won't tolerate discrimination of any form, including discrimination against the LGBTQ community. The reality is, in the year 2017, Danny, it is still totally legal to fire someone from their job, deny them public housing, or to deny them service at a restaurant just because they're LGBTQ.
So what does the law cover exactly? You mentioned to me a few minutes ago before we went in. That law, which is supposed to protect the civil rights of people, covers
the Florida
what?
Civil Rights Act basically says that discrimination is prohibited on the basis of sex, race, ethnicity, national origin, disability, pregnancy status, that you cannot discriminate against a person based on any of those characteristics. What it does not say is that you can't discriminate against someone based on their sexual orientation or their gender identity, so folks who identify as part of the LGBTQ community. So we met with the governor's office 2 weeks after the tragedy at Pulse and asked them to please sign an executive order that the governor can do to protect, in the very least, state employees and government contractors from anti-LGBTQ discrimination. The governor's office said that they were committed to this issue, that they wanted to do it within 2 months, and if for some reason they weren't going to do it or the governor changed his mind, they would let us know. A year later, this executive order has not been signed, and we're calling it a broken promise because the governor's team had committed and promised to take this very meaningful but also symbolic action to protect the LGBTQ community from discrimination after the tragedy at Pulse, and they've not delivered, so it's time to hold them accountable.
Who is your main contact at the governor's office on this?
Well, at the governor's office, it's always been the then Chief of Staff, Kim McDougal, and the legislative liaison, Kevin Riley, who are the top 2 lieutenants at the governor's office, other than the governor and lieutenant governor themselves. So promises and commitments made on their behalf, which were ongoing for an entire year, are just as good as promises from the governor himself. But look, the reality is, Danny, the very least that state government and the governor can do, after 49 mostly LGBTQ people were murdered, is send a message that Florida is a place that doesn't tolerate discrimination against our community, and they can't even do that, which is very frustrating and makes you wonder, what are the political calculations for why the governor won't do this? Is it a political calculation? Is he planning on running for U.S. Senate against Bill Nelson, and he doesn't want to be perceived by his Republican base as helping the LGBTQ community in any way? The governor could not have more political cover to do this, and yet no action, just words. It's really sad.
Well, I think most decisions that are made in the governor's mansion are political. You know, that's the way it is, you know.
But it's not. But I feel very strongly about this, Danny, because this is not a game for us. This political shenanigan this is our lives that we're fighting for. Okay? When the LGBTQ community talks about being marginalized, when we talk about discrimination that our community has suffered, when we talk about physical attacks and targeting of our community, this is not a joke. It's reality. And Pulse was a horrific and terrible reminder that homophobia and bigotry and hatred still exists, and we have to do everything that we can to eradicate it.
You recently got a lot of support from the religious community, didn't you, in a press conference?
That's
Tell us
right.
about that.
That's right. Just this week, faith leaders from many denominations, not only from the Jewish community, from the Muslim community, from the Christian community, all came together and held a press conference and demonstrated their support for the governor to take this action. So the question is he going to leave this as a broken promise, that after such a horrific tragedy that literally no action was taken whatsoever to protect the LGBT community from discrimination, or is he actually going to do something?
Does the LGBT community have a path of action in mind in order to push this agenda on the governor to loosen him up?
You know,
is there something that you guys...
Well, look, I mean, at this point, we feel like we've done everything we can, but now the community's rising up. It's not just me or Equality Florida saying the governor needs to do this. It's not just faith leaders who have stood up and called on the governor to do this. Just last weekend, one of the Pulse moms, Christine Leinonen, who lost her son who was murdered at the Pulse nightclub, she wrote an op-ed that was published in the Orlando Sentinel asking for the governor to take this action. A Pulse survivor, Brandon Wolf, did the same thing, wrote an op-ed in the Tallahassee Democrat last week asking for the governor to do this. All of these voices are coming together. Why won't he do this?
Well, you know the answer to that, because I'm assuming that he doesn't want to lose part of his base or get into conflict. You know, sometimes, you know and I know, sometimes politicians don't say anything, right, because if they say anything, they got to go to one side or the other, which creates an impression on a constituency, and they don't want to have pressure being put back the other way.
Well, the reality is he needs to take this action, and then the legislature needs to finish the job, because then what they can do is they can update the Florida Civil Rights Act through legislation.
Can't you do that? You're a state local official. Isn't there a way you can make an amendment and kind of, I mean, you're a legislator.
Well, I've done that. I have co-sponsored legislation that will do just that. This isn't an idea that we just came up with recently.
Yeah, I know.
This is a legislative proposal that the community and the business community has really backed for the last several years.
Who has not supported that amendment?
Well, the reality is a handful of leaders in Tallahassee, namely the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and folks who control the agenda won't hear the bill. So
and there's no way around that. There's no...
Well, we're broadening the coalition, but this is how government works. It has to be heard in committee. It needs to move to the House and Senate floor for a vote, and then it's sent to the governor. You know, that's the process.
Right.
So, you know, we are committed to this fight for the long haul and to continuing to advocate for this issue. But, you know, the way that we eradicate anti-LGBTQ discrimination is not just through signing an executive order or passing a law to say discrimination is wrong. We have a comprehensive approach. We have to make sure that our kids in our public schools have access to the resources that they need, and that they have the protections that they need to live their full and authentic lives. We need to make sure that they're treated equally in our public schools, so that early on young people can learn about accepting people for who they are.
So what is happening at the public school level, and at what level? Is there an educational process that's being enacted, or is that also in process to happen? Or is there something that's actually happening?
It varies from school district to school district. You know, you have some more accepting, more modern school districts, like ones in South Florida, for example, or even here in Orange County, that are very supportive of the GSA network, which is the Gay Straight Alliance network of student clubs and organizations that are safe spaces for LGBTQ youth to be themselves and feel like they have the support not only of their student peers, but also of faculty and staff, that they can be themselves and they don't have to worry about anti-LGBTQ bullying, that they don't have to worry about being treated differently just for being who they are. So these types of programs that offer the safe space and the resources that LGBTQ youth really need are super important, and they need to be expanded upon.
Mm-hmm. And when you're a part-timer when it comes to state legislation, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people assume that if you get elected in Florida, that you're packing in the money with a big check and you work full-time.
It's considered a citizens part-time legislature only because we're not in session full-time. But the reality is, and you mentioned something also about wealth and salary and all that. A report just came out yesterday in the Miami Herald and the Associated Press that showed all of the public filings for the personal wealth that lawmakers have accumulated. And what they underscored was the modern reality, which is that right now the average net worth of a Florida lawmaker is $2.14 million. That the longer they serve in public office, that the more they are able to enrich themselves personally off of the system.
But that's not a salary. When you say, let's talk about the state legislature, like the state reps. How much does a state rep actually make?
The salary is $29,000 per year. So what a lot of people don't understand is what that does is that creates an environment in Tallahassee where the only folks who are serving are people who do have personal wealth and they can afford to live on a $29,000 salary. If we had a full-time legislature, or at least a full-time pay, you would see folks from all walks of life, from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, serving in a real citizens legislature.
So what you're basically saying is because it is $29,000 a year, it only attracts wealthy people or people who can really, really subsidize themselves.
Because what job are you aware of that a normal working class Floridian has where they can afford to take up to 6 months off a year from their regular job so that they can go be a lawmaker? What normal working job allows for a person to do that?
So you're a part-time legislature. So what do all of these legislators do? The ones that aren't rich, because the newcomer, whatever, there's got to be a few guys in there that aren't rich. What do they do during the other time?
Well, I can use myself as an example. I work for a not-for-profit advocacy organization, Equality Florida, our state's largest LGBT civil rights organization. I love the work that I do. I love my profession. But part of the reason why I have an additional job on top of being an elected official is because I need to pay my bills, because the salary of a Florida lawmaker is $29,000 per year. So I have to have another job to be able to supplement that income and be able to make a real living. But the reality is that even on that list that I told you about, that the Associated Press published the net wealth and net worth of all 160 lawmakers, I was actually cited in that report as ranking at the bottom of the list. And I don't mean like the bottom 10th percentile. I mean
at the bottom.
I am dead last out of 160 lawmakers on my own personal net worth. And I'll tell you, Danny, I wear that as a badge of honor, because I really don't think that the average net worth of $2.14 million of my colleagues, I think that I am certainly more connected with the needs of everyday Floridians than one of the millionaires is.
Do you feel that you're treated as an equal in the state legislature? I mean, personally. I mean, not only because of your status, but I mean because of your economic status too. You know, do they treat you like...
Well, luckily, as someone who has earned a seat at the table in the Florida House of Representatives because my constituents elected me to, whether they want to treat me as an equal or not, I have an equal voice in the process. So I do feel like I'm being treated as an equal because it's something that I earned thanks to the voters.
I remember a long time ago somebody told me some people are more equal than others. Yeah, I got it. All right, so the state legislature, the average guy makes $2.4 million. Do you think that taints their decision? Because obviously a guy who's into $2 million a year, he has allegiances and he has major interests that are not $29,000 a year. So does that taint
here's what I'll say.
Their process of picking the support?
If we had less millionaires serving in the Florida legislature, I'm sure that there would be much more support amongst those elected officials for universal health care, for affordable housing, for a $15 minimum wage, for the everyday things that affect working people that really have a hard time getting heard and discussed in Tallahassee. Why? Because they don't rank personally on the list of priorities for so many of these lawmakers who, quite frankly, are out of touch with everyday Floridians.
Okay. Well, listen, we just ran out of time. They ran quick. We ran really quick. But you're always great to have over here because you give us a really good, fresh perspective of what's going on in the community and also what's going on in the state legislature. I didn't know that it was $2.4 million average.
$2.14 million is the average net worth.
I'm thinking of how many people that have that kind of wealth, because I don't have that kind of wealth, have allegiances to other things. So when they go to the state legislature, they have allegiances that they're already following that have special interests.
That's right.
So how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I feel like the system needs to change.
Is the system stacked?
The system is certainly stacked, but I am a firm believer in the concept, whether it has to do with government or party politics, as so many people are frustrated by. I am a firm believer in the concept that the way to genuinely transform these institutions and change them for the better is from within. And that's why I ran for office, because I felt like I could use my voice for the greater good within the system of government that we need to change so desperately.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be there for a long, long time, and we'll watch you go to the Senate, probably in a few years when it's convenient for everybody, and especially you. And I know that you're going to have a long political career. I know that.
Thanks, Danny.
So congratulations.
Appreciate
All right,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
This is Danny Ramos. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Tap rooms are localized and they're geographic. The Hispanic community is much broader than one tap room. So what we decided to do was come out with a high-quality craft beer, 2 high-quality craft beers that appeal to the Hispanic taste and that we can distribute in all the Hispanic neighborhoods. Taino is a very light, refreshing beer. It's a social beer that you can drink probably for a good part of the evening, and it'll give you a nice light feeling. It's not a heavy beer, it's very airy, and it's very light. It's a 4.5 alcohol, which is low for beer. The Boricua is a 6.0. Now that's a stronger beer, and we designed it to be a little bit stronger than Heineken. Heineken is a favorite in the Hispanic community, so we have a little bit more muscle than Heineken. Boricua right now, in a very short amount of time, it's been a miracle for us because we've gotten a large range of acceptance at the retail level. We're in Publix, we're in ABC, Target is picking it up, we're in Sedano's, we're in Bravo's, 7-Elevens are picking it up because they're concentrating more on craft beer and the Hispanic market. So what we're trying to do is do a quality beer, a high quality beer, more taste, and that the Hispanic community will like.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.